Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on three. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. This week, we are back with family counselor Erin Cox. Erin, thanks for being back with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Today, we're going to talk about how we as parents should react and help our kids understand what's happening in Minnesota and in Portland and in other places across the United States where ICE has really stepped up their detainment. This was requested by Deirdre on Instagram. She said, please do an episode on how to talk to our kids about all of this. I am in Minnesota with 9 and 13-year-olds. Trying to be a present parent with all of this feels impossible and scary. And I think the three of us can certainly identify with that. It's hard to know what to say, and yet it feels like this is what we're all thinking about. So time to talk about it.
Amy and I are located in New York. The issue of ICE has not been as omnipresent as it has been in Minnesota, but this is all over our kids. I have teenagers on their TikTok feeds, on their Instagram feeds. So for kids who you're like, well, I don't want to introduce this topic or I don't want to talk about it because it's not affecting us and our community, I would advise that your kids are probably hearing about this. We used to joke about Amy, who used to sit on the fire escape behind her school, explaining the birds and the bees to her fellow classmates.
Yeah, I was the 11-year-old sex counselor for my peers. Yeah, really reliable resource.
I think we often make the mistake of parents of saying, this isn't affecting my kids. I don't want to introduce this to my kids. There's a lot in this ball that I think we're going to try to pick apart today.
That sounds good. I thought we should first start with the facts on the ground, what we're talking about, because we also live in a world where we're not receiving the same news sources. Some of us are making the choice to be completely detached from this. It's hard to know what's true and what's not. I just want to go through the basics of this is what's happening. And this has all been sourced, and I'm putting the links in the show notes if you want to look up the resources where this came from. So since Trump took office last year, ICE has booked at least 3,800 children into detention, which is a big uptick. The Dilley Detention Center in Texas is specifically where families are taken, like Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old boy who was taken, and his father. They went to Texas because that's where ICE detains families together. Kids as young as 2 months old are in this detention center. The conditions there, Congress people have visited it and put out statements on what they're seeing there. There's water that's unsafe to drink. There's bugs and worms in food. There's absent or at least very inadequate medical care for the people that are in there. And now this week, a measles outbreak inside the detention center, so they're not letting anybody in or out right now. It's also important to underline that ICE does have the authority, if they wanted to release everybody who's there. Everybody who is being held there, that's a choice that's being made, but another choice could just as easily be made because these are people who are legally seeking asylum and other humanitarian protections inside the United States. Many of these people and children have been in the United States for years, and no one being held at Dilley has a criminal history anywhere in the world, let alone in the United States. So you could let all these people go home on parole and have hearings rather than hold them. This is where this kid, Liam Ramos, the kid with the bunny hat that we all saw on TV, was taken with his father. They were returned to Minnesota this week after having been held at Dilley for, I think it was about a week, 10 days, after widespread response and pressure to release them.
I will say the judge's order in that case is worth reading.
Yeah, let's link to that too, because it was really worth reading. But it's important to know that that school district has had several other children taken, that other schools in that school district have had custodians and students and parents of students taken. It was a picture that really told 1,000 words, but it wasn't unique in some ways. And that school had to be closed this week because they're getting bomb threats because this kid is back in school. In Minnesota, all families are feeling this pressure of being under target. Even if you're not in danger of being detained by ICE, your kid goes to school with people who are, and the school buses are being searched. Parents are being taken at drop-off. It's traumatic for anybody who's living in this community right now. Those who can move about safely are doing things like delivering groceries and taking people's laundry to the laundromat and dropping it off. Doctors are, after their long shifts, going to people's houses to provide medical care because they're afraid to leave their houses. And there's a lot of nonviolent protest happening in the street that protesters are being tear gassed. That's happening in Minneapolis. That's happening in Portland. That's happening to kids. And after Alex Preddy's death, it was sort of thought like, okay, we're going to take a pause and things are going to dial down. And that's not true. It hasn't dialed down or changed. It's continuing exactly the same. And more is coming because Portland, Oregon has seen ramped up activity this week. And Haitian nationals have temporary protected status that was supposed to expire yesterday, as of the day we're recording this. That was extended by a judge. But there's going to be a battle. And if Haitians no longer have temporary protected status in the United States, which they need because it's extremely dangerous in Haiti, there's going to be very sudden expected ramp up of activities in places like South Florida and New York and Springfield, Ohio, and Massachusetts.
And I think the core of this issue, however you feel about immigration and what the role of law enforcement is in that this campaign is strategically very fear-based. There is an effort to get people to stop coming to the United States and to self-deport for fear of being separated from their families. Whether or not you think that is the right approach, there is a tremendous amount of fear that comes along with this approach. It is an approach that is designed to make people fearful. We need to be able to talk to our kids because what they are feeling is fear, because fear is the point of this approach.
Yeah.
And so turning to you, Erin, we're going to divide into maybe two categories. Our kids in Minnesota who are being directly impacted, who are seeing maybe classmates not at school, who are seeing very frightening scenes in the streets of their town. We also are going to want to talk at some point about kids who are just seeing this on social media. But let's start with direct impact.
Well, I think a good place to start with kids that are actually sort of right there on the scene is safety planning, right? To give them an idea of this is what you need to do to stay safe in certain situations. Because the reality is, like you're talking about, if people are coming on school buses or at school, right, or in neighborhoods, that kids want to know that there's a plan. Right? Like here in the Midwest, we have tornadoes. We have a plan for tornadoes, right? If you live in California, you have a plan for earthquakes. So if you are in an area where there's a lot of ice activity, I would recommend maybe establishing like a plan with your kiddos. I have teenagers and we talked about don't answer the door, right? Please don't let anyone in our home, especially if I'm not here. But also if you have a kiddo that is maybe more anxious, to really proceed with caution when you're creating a plan. So let me give you an example. When I worked in the schools, if we had, tornado safety and we did tornado drills and we were really talking about, if you're at home, you can make a backpack and you can put a flashlight and a radio and a, bottle of water. And, a few of those really anxious kids would be like, I need this backpack with me at all times. And they wanted to have it in the room and they wanted to sleep with it and they wanted to bring it to, they wanted it, it became obsessive, right? And so I think that's what you want to avoid is making kids, to your point, Margaret, like afraid all the time, because that's not healthy either, but to help them feel prepared. I don't know where you guys stand on sort of the mom idea of if you are in a dangerous situation, look for the moms. If I'm not with you, look for the moms and, how do you know they're the moms? And you're like, they're the ones pushing the stroller, right?
We've definitely talked about that. My kids, when they're little, living in New York City, if you are somehow on the subway by yourself, you look for a mom and the mom will help you.
Right. So I think that that's a helpful thing that can help a kid feel safe. Okay, there's a plan. I'm not just winging this. I can find a safe person. And the language I use with kids is always trusted adult. Find an adult you trust. And so we talked about at school. The kids and I were talking about teachers and feeling safe. But out of the mouths of babes, my daughter, when we were talking about this at school and maybe what to do, I said, do you feel, safe at school right now? And she said, well, I feel as safe as you can in an American high school. And I was like, oh,
wow.
What have we done to these kids, right?
Right.
So I don't know that we're ever going to reach the goal of everyone's feeling 100% safe. But if you can establish maybe with them some sort of plan with your family, I think it's a good start.
As I talk to my own children about this, you are very unlikely to be the victim of a school shooting, but we do active shooter drills, right? And so it can be challenging to feel like we're not undercutting the reality of what's going on. And I think probably the situation with ICE is somewhat similar, that we're seeing a tremendous amount on the news. And we want to balance for our kids, not making kids feel, yes, this could happen to anyone, but is that a useful dynamic to try to introduce to kids?
Well, that's a classic phrase to use with anyone with anxiety. It's not likely to happen is kind of the phrase, which is tremendously helpful for those people that have anxiety or tend to worry a lot or preoccupation. But they're seeing it on, social media. They're hearing about it on the news. So to be dismissive of kids and say, that's not here, that's not you, that's not going to work either, right? I think there's this middle ground of, this is the reality. This is the world we're living in. Here's how to be safe. I still want to make sure that you are a happy, healthy kiddo that still gets to go to basketball practice or, you're riding that line between despair and hope all the time.
Right.
You don't want to push them too far. You want to give them hope that they can manage this. Times are tough, but so are you.
We're talking to family counselor Erin Cox. When we come back, I want to talk about being a mom during this. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. So Deirdre's question, I went back and looked at Deirdre's question, and she is talking about how to be a present parent with all this. She's in Minnesota. She's on the front lines, right? So she can't avail herself of like, it's not actually here. Let's not worry too much. Like the wolf is at the door. But I think all of us feel this, who are engaging with this, feel this really unsettled fear that is hard to set aside, right? No matter how rational we can be, like, okay, it's not happening to my family. It's not happening to my family today, whatever, that it feels really unsettling. And like you were saying before, Margaret, about how the fear is the point, I think the unsettledness is the point. And I wanted to talk about that for ourselves as well. I'm going to give you a Pooja Lakshman, what she had to say about this moment. She said that psychological safety depends on a shared reality. And that shared reality, that's true at a family level, and that's true at a societal level. And in dysfunctional systems, family or society, reality is minimized. Your perception is questioned. And right now we're having denial at the institutional level, and it's destabilizing. We have a fractured shared reality. And so I feel like I'm losing my mind sometimes. Like, how can this be happening? And
right, it's the upside down.
We're in the upside down, right? And so I wanted to talk about that too, because that's where so many of us are. How do you approach this moment for yourself, Erin, as a mom?
Well, I think the idea is always start with your own personal regulation, right? To have your mental health like your A game. This is not the time to say, oh, I stopped eating and I stopped sleeping and no. Back to basics, right? Getting plenty of sleep, you're eating healthy foods, you're drinking lots of water, you're moving your body, you're journaling, like you're taking excellent care of you. That like, this is not a drill. Like you were learning all those things, like, wouldn't it be great? No, that's go time, right? Get your basics in place and then start to do the things that build resilience for you. Are there hobbies you enjoy? Can you start a meditation practice? Do you need to do deep breathing? Do you get strength from like religion or spirituality? Like whatever it is, do the things, right? Get yourself regulated, and then your kiddo can co-regulate to you. So your children co-regulate to their parents, just like children in a classroom will co-regulate to a teacher. So if you are regulated and you are telling them like, these are difficult times, I'm not trying to gaslight you and say that they're not. I'm trying to say, don't see what's behind the curtain, right? I'm saying, yep, this is hard. But also I'm saying, you got this. I'm here for you. Let's do some slow, deep breathing together. Let's take a walk and talk about our feelings. Let's safety plan like we were talking about before. Like whatever it is, we're going to do those things, but we're going to do it in a way that says, I'm safe in here and you're safe. I think you guys were talking about in a recent episode, your skull palace, or like what's between your ears. Is that a safe place to be? So to make it so that you are safe and your children can look at you and go, okay, I'm also safe. I think that's really tough to do in times of crisis, but it's non-negotiable. It has to happen.
And one of the things that I think can dysregulate ourselves is the way that news or upsetting events is reflected back to us, especially in young children. So young children express themselves through play. And I've shared before that a child was murdered in our school district when my kids were young. And it was shocking and horrifying. It was, again, so beyond, like Amy was saying, our reality is this. And then this incident happened that was so outside of what we considered like, oh, I'm ready to talk to you about being kind. I'm ready to talk to you about racism. I was not ready at all to talk about a young child being killed. It just was not in my ability field.
No.
And I think that this can feel a little bit the same. Like, I don't even know where to begin this conversation. And one of the things that the counselors who came to our school really underscored was the role of play, but that play can often be very upsetting because the kids on the playground at school ended up playing, I'm the murderer and I'm chasing you around and I'm going to try to kill you. Can you run fast enough to escape? But the kids were actually processing what was going on. They were asking incredibly upsetting questions of us, the parents, like, would you murder me? Really letting kids express what we don't want to hear or think ourselves, I think can often be a challenge when things get this fraught. And I think that this ties back to the way that some kids are processing this, the way that they're talking. They may be saying things that feel racially charged. You know, ICE isn't going to get me, they're going to get you. I think when we try to attack these things through like things that our kids are not allowed to say, we are well-intentioned, but off course.
I have two different kind of schools of thought on this. One is that kids don't have the ability to say, actually, I'm feeling quite dysregulated due to the current reality. They won't be able to verbalize it probably at all. The way that kids communicate those things is through play, right? We have like a rule in working with children that I use in my child and adolescent class that I teach is for future counselors that all children, the way that they communicate to us is through their behavior. All of their behaviors are communications to us. So we have to be on the translating end because it doesn't come as a clear-cut message. We have to sort of put on our detective hat and go, what is this kiddo communicating through this behavior that they're showing me? It requires us to be a little more attuned to kids, right? Which is a good thing. It's a really good thing for us to be attuned to our children. But it can't be just sort of, why did you think that? That's a horrible thing to say. It's got to be like, okay, they're communicating something here. Can I get to that need? Do they have a lack of understanding? What are they trying to tell me through their behaviors? They're not just going to come out and verbalize it. They're going to show me something. If you have a kid that an increase in behaviors at school all of a sudden, right? Instead of just, I'm going to punish this kid, it's like, what's going on with this kiddo? They're telling us something. Can we hear their message, right? And I think that's going to be part of it. That's part one. Then the other school of thought I was thinking when you said that, Margaret, was just the idea of empathy. Like, what an amazing teachable time to work with kids in empathy, especially those kiddos that struggle with it, of saying there's children, and Amy was mentioning, in Texas, we can empathize with them. Can we put ourselves in their shoes? Can we see that that would be a really difficult situation? And kids learn empathy. It's kind of a learned behavior. We kind of have to point it out when we see it, call attention to it, name it. It's empathy. And here's what it is. So hard for kids, right? They're intentionally the center of the universe, right? They're supposed to feel that way. But then to have them just practice in those non-threatening ways, that when the big stuff comes up, that hopefully they can go, okay, I can put myself in someone else's shoes.
I saw a TikTok this week. It was a guy wrote a very funny song and somebody was like, when did you get angry? And he's like, well, when Spider-Man taught me that with great power comes great responsibility, when Harry Potter told me that you have to take care of people. And he just went through how every TV show, every book, Arthur on PBS or Bluey, like that these things have taught me a set of lessons. Everything in me is supposed to apply these lessons. It made me think about how unsettling this must be for kids who they do internalize those lessons, right? And you do see the police are our friends. Now, the police are our friends, but there are people wearing uniforms that say police on them in Minnesota and doing terrible things. They're on police, right? And then the police are like, wait a minute, what am I supposed to do? And it's very unclear. It's unclear.
Yes.
Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Who can you trust in these adults? Who can you not trust? There's this unmooring for the kids too. How do you get at, I don't think you can sit down with your kids and it must be very confusing to be told that good guys behave this way and bad guys behave this way. And now sometimes that's not true. But do you keep reading them those books? Do you keep putting those things in front of them? How do you address that?
So that's always the human in us. We want, in every story, we want like a hero and a victim, and we want a villain. right? Like we kind of always want those dynamics. And when that gets messy, we're very uncertain. Down is up and up is down. For kids, it's going to be really complicated to say, life is more, there's way more nuance than, the hero and the victim and the villain. There's a lot more going on. But I think that that's the idea of, I'm going to go gut check. Sometimes we've got to develop this like internal system of, I got to go with my gut. If something feels unsafe, if you feel like you want to call me in the middle of a sleepover, you call me. Develop that sense of, I'm going to gut check this. Does this feel like a good idea? Does this feel like a safe person? Does this feel like a safe situation? I think I would start working on that because there rarely is it clear cut that there's a hero and a victim and a villain, right? It's not. Life is messy. Life is messy. So to develop working on that self-trust in the kiddo, about good decision making in the kiddo, about gut checking things, checking in on the inside, I think sometimes is a good place to start, but there's no easy answers.
But I think that going back to young kids, that idea of play really helps with a lot of this. Like, how did it feel when you said that to that kid and you saw their face? One of the things we've talked about is kids being too much on phone. So they need that in-person interaction where I say something and I see Amy's face and I get a really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach because I hurt my friend with the thing I said. Kids need a lot of practice. And I think we need to step back a little bit and let them practice and make mistakes, allowing that space for them to figure out how it feels and who they want to be.
I think that's really important. I think that if you can have a kid be able to develop a feelings vocabulary, right, to talk about feelings, to name their feelings. In my field, we say, name it to tame it and feel it to heal it. We got to name these feelings. So in a kid's play, if they're saying something, you might say, okay, right, let's talk about this. So that you're adding a little
context,
right, to the situation. But you're right that sometimes they just need to bump into things to figure it out. Like, isn't that how all of us learned, right? Life is messy, right? We got to bump into things. We've got to hurt our friends' feelings to go, wow, that made me not feel good on the inside too. What was that? And then to name that feeling. Do I feel guilty for that? Do I feel sad about that? Like, to name it. I say this to the counselors I train, but to all of us. We're these ducks on the surface and it looks so nice, but underneath, you're paddling like hell. I think that's parenting. Be like, oh yeah, and just sitting here watching them play, but really there's a lot going on under the surface.
We're talking to Erin Cox. We'll be right back. I want to click on something that Amy talked about.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Amy was talking about police are our friends. Now we see people with the word police. I was recently talking to a friend of mine who is married to a police officer about how hard this time is for them. We do not want police officers to become the bad guys for our own safety, for the safety of our children. I think for people serving in all sorts of different roles, it is also hard for those people to feel like, wait a minute, my kid is hearing at school that I'm the bad guy, like the police are snatching children, and figuring out how to have conversations where we do have to get at some of this nuance, that we're now a culture of good guys and bad guys, and we can identify them by what they're wearing.
That's what I wanted to underline, is that the confusion is the point. Wearing a police thing, even though you're not the police, or the National Guard going into Minnesota to try to help and having to wear crossing guard vests over their military uniform, because military uniform does not necessarily indicate somebody's safe in Minneapolis right now. Quite the contrary. So they had to wear crossing guard vests, like we're just here for hot cocoa and to try to help somebody who needs help. The uniforms are confusing, but the confusion's the point, and how to help our kids feel less confused. That's a tough one.
And we've gone a lot to like, look for the helpers and all the people helping, and the helpers are there, but it's like, wait a minute, how do we help our kids suss out what's going on when it seemed before like, well, the good guys will always come help.
Boy, I wish I could answer.
Come on, Erin, solve it for us. We need the answer right now. This is it.
Holy buckets, right? Whoa. I think that's the $1,000,000 question, right? What can we do to recognize, to look at all of this and see the reality of it and go, this is actually happening, while informing our kids, helping them learn right from wrong, good from bad, and all these lessons that we've always been trying to teach our kids in the middle of world events, and who is safe and who is not. I just think that's such a difficult question that never has an easy answer. Not to throw a whole other issue in, but just like thinking of Jeffrey Epstein and all of that that's going on. Like, who is safe? I don't know. There's not a good guy and a bad guy. They're not presenting themselves as such. It's very confusing. So I think kind of developing, like we were saying earlier, that self-trusting kiddos, that gut checking kiddos, that like, I can't give you a clear-cut answer as to who is safe and who is not. I need you to sort of develop your own inner check. I need you to make good decisions. I need you to listen to your body, because your body listens to you, and follow that lead. But I think that in the short term, the answer is going to be, maybe if you have an image of what the uniforms are looking like in your area, to say, this is what I'm talking about, and then maybe an image of, this is what the police uniforms look like in our area, and this is how they will present themselves, and this is what, if you see this person, they are with the fire department, and if you see, just to give like a basic, these are the uniforms in our community, like a picture guide, so that they feel like, okay, well then I can visibly maybe recognize uniforms at least.
And it reminds me of something that Amy has said a lot on the podcast too, to teens and stuff about phone companies. They're trying to trick you. They're trying to keep you on the phone all day. They're trying to make it so that you never turn it off. And if you can see that, you get a little bit more into the bigger picture of, there are tricky people trying to trick you. And there is a way to look for those clues, not just like, who the heck knows? We're all confused about here. I think there's some ways to say to kids, like, listen, this is about trying to make us feel afraid. And the bravest thing that we can do is show up for our community without fear. I think that gives agency to kids, as opposed to just like, yeah, it's crazy out there.
I just watched, and I wanted to suggest this to everyone, Ken Burns' The American Revolution. It's a new, I think it's probably 12 hours of a documentary about the American Revolution. And basically everything you thought you knew is not how you knew it. Really interesting. If you have kids that I would say 10 years old or older, it's really worth watching. The first episode, it's available on PBS, Amazon, and Apple TV. The first episode shows the Boston Tea Party, which was citizens in nonviolent protest rising up against what they were feeling like was an overreach and oppressive government. And when they did that, I don't know, I thought it was just kind of like a fun afternoon kind of thing. Well, the response from the British government was really, really retribution towards Boston in particular. They really punished them, really tried to squeeze them out, like during the winter, smoke them out. And the other colonies responded to the British government's surprise by siding with Massachusetts and trying to help them get through being singled out in this way. It didn't have to draw out the obvious parallels. It didn't have to say,
does this sound familiar?
Yeah. But if you have a kid who is, I would say like elementary age or older, watch this and let them draw those connections, if any. But it really opened my eyes in a way that's somewhat reassuring that history rhymes, as Ken Burns says, and this is something that we have seen before.
And unfortunately, maybe we will see again, right? I think that that's kind of a key piece to all of this, is to sometimes zoom out and look at the big picture. You know, when I was talking with my kids about everything that's going on, we kind of landed on this too shall pass. That's where we kind of came around to in our family discussion. And that phrase became popular in America because Abraham Lincoln included it in a letter when he lost his Senate seat. He wrote in a letter, about how this too shall pass. And then shortly after that, he gave this speech, and then he did this too shall pass. It's not a biblical statement like we might think. It's actually, I think, from like Persia or something from long, long ago. But then Abraham Lincoln was like, this too shall pass. Like, I don't want to minimize it, and I don't want to pretend like things are not happening. This is happening. We are here. This is the moment. And to know when our brain goes, it's always, because this is what we do, we extend it both directions. It's always been like this. It's always going to be like this. Nothing. We start to like pile on, right? And get to that despair point to go, okay, this too shall pass. This is a moment in time, and we can build resilience and we can move through this. The example that we used in my family, we're talking about how we're in a different spot with COVID this year than we were in 2021, right? Things feel like this always going to be this way, but it does change as time goes on. So to understand that temporary piece or that change piece, whatever phrase that works for you, can help with building that resilience. And then after we talked about this too shall pass, we were talking about the band OK Go has this crazy music videos with like things flying and paint going everywhere.
The
like
treadmills,
insanity, the treadmill. And they have one of their songs, this too shall pass. So we're like watching videos of this too shall pass music video. And then in the mental health world, Stan Tacton, I think, kind of started it. But it's like, you got to set people up right again. When you have these conversations that knock them down, you got to set them up right before you send them out the door. So we were talking about these really heavy things, and then we kind of did this, okay, this too shall pass. Okay, we're watching this music video. Okay, we're laughing about it, looking at other stuff. That was cool. How did they do that? We set them up right, and then we send them out the door.
That's really smart. You don't end on, well, life is hell.
Right.
You say, like, here's a path forward.
Right.
Let's talk for a moment, because I think one of the things about our time, and I know we'll hear in comments on this episode, that it's political, that what we're talking about is political. We're being divisive by talking against the ICE operations in Minnesota. But I think that it is important to focus on the fact that this is affecting all children. Children are feeling frightened by what they're seeing. It's really not about who you voted for. There are lots of debates to be had around how immigration in the United States should be handled. I think what we're trying to get at is that this way of handling it is frightening children, and that has to be dealt with no matter how you feel. And polls are showing that most people are like, okay, this is getting too crazy and scary. I actually don't like it.
We have an obligation, right, to keep our children safe. That's what we do. And so when something comes along that makes that difficult, that's where the mom in all of us, right? I don't care what age my children are now or will be, like, there's still this mom in me that's going to go, okay, how do I meet this moment with that in mind? And I think that that's kind of what you're talking about. How do you meet this moment?
Yeah, and keeping apart from the people who are telling us, like, if you believe this, you're totally different than these moms who believe this, and saying, like, as moms, we can look at this problem as a problem that is currently affecting children in the United States of America. And that's where we can attack it from as people trying to care for children in the United States of America.
And the policy is affecting kids, too, not just the kids who are watching on TV, but the kids who are being taken to Texas and sleeping on the floor for months that don't have to be there. This is a choice that we're making, and it's being made in all of our names. And hard to argue it's making us safer.
No, and we 100%, to be clear, think the policy is terrible.
Right.
And the consequences of the policy is our children are feeling frightened. Not good.
Let's stand ourselves up, though, because sometimes I think when it's like, well, we're just going to make cookies and not think about it, I think of that as like, you can't do that. You have to watch as much Twitter as possible and, and dwell in the terribleness. Glo Atonmo says, micro joys is how we survive macro grief. And I thought that was kind of another version of what you were saying, Erin. Like, it's okay to dwell in this is tough and then watch the OK Go video and talk about how they did that and set ourselves up right again.
Yeah, I think that that's the Zen saying of life is 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. It's not one or the other. It's all the above, and it's all the time. We've got a lot of opportunities to find joy where there is. Like the other day, I was letting my dogs out, and it was literally 0 degrees. Like the temperature said 0. Freezing, and I'm like, opening the door, letting the dogs out, and I thought I heard something, and I was like, what? And I stepped a little further out, and there was bird song out in the early, 6 a.m., 0 degrees outside in the dead of winter. And I was like, bird song, and I just felt so happy to have heard that and lucky to have heard that. I think that keeps me grounded. In the book Awakening Joy, they talk about leaving a little space to let the joy in, right? Even when times are tough, especially when times are tough. Can you leave a little space to let the joy in? And can you let your kids see you leaving a little space to let the joy in? And can you encourage your kids to have a little space to let the joy in? And again, they're going to be kind of co-regulating to you, right? And if they see you still practicing gratitude or still practicing joy, even in difficult times, that gives them permission to sort of do the same. With parenting, let me give you the example of a funeral. If a kid is going to a funeral, the people always ask, should the kids go or not? Do we take them to the funeral or do we not take them to the funeral? And the answer is always like, if you're going to be right by their side and you're going to be, we call it in grief work, like you're going to be their Sherpa up the mountain, then take them to the funeral. If you're going to be right there telling them what's happening, explaining the ritual of it, commenting on how other people are processing their grief, then bring them. That is really helpful for them to see. But if you're not going to be their Sherpa up the mountain, maybe this is not the funeral for them to attend. And I think that in this case, even though we aren't sure what's going on, we're still their Sherpa up the mountain. We've still got to be kind of coaching them and guiding them through this. So we've got to keep ourselves healthy and regulated, and then we've got to help them up the mountain too.
And so many people in Minnesota have been that for us.
Whoa, good point.
People who are just like bringing food, being community. We can look to those people. And that's one thing I've emphasized a lot with my kids is that 1 million people throughout history have tried to pull this play, scare people to death to make them stay home. And what I see is people coming out and protecting their neighbors and taking care of their neighbors and bringing food and doctors. We really can be frightened by this, but we can also be so inspired by the humans who are coming out and saying, this is not okay. And I, like 80-year-old Lutheran lady, am out here in the 0 degree freezing cold to make a difference. And that just is beyond inspiring.
There you go.
We're going to put links in the show notes to many resources where you can find out more about what's going on the ground in Minnesota and how you might be able to help, and clear links to information and facts you can trust. Erin, please tell us about your new Instagram account.
So I started a new Instagram account just recently when all of this happened to just help people sort of every day build that resilience, keep that regulation to get through this difficult time. And so it's at Love You with Erin. So LOVE, the letter U, with WITH Erin, ERIN. So Love You with Erin. I'm just putting something every day up, like simple thing that you can do, low to no cost, that can keep you regulated. And again, as a parent, that regulation, I promise you, kids will pick up on that. So in anything in life, I know, Margaret, you were touching on this earlier, it's the kids that pick up the tab for whatever the adults are doing. Kids are always the ones that pick up the tab. So let's explore what's the tab we're leaving with these kids. And then just as far as doing the show in general, I don't know if you guys have read the book, Everything is Tuberculosis.
No.
That is a book. Everything is tied to tuberculosis, just PS, and by the way. John Green wrote it. And he talks about in that book at some point, him being an author, at some point, he's yelling out, Marco, Marco. And every once in a while, he'll get this reader that reads it and they're, Polo, they answered back Polo to his Marco. And I just feel like you guys addressing this today, your listeners were sending out a Marco and you sent back a Polo. So I'm really happy to be part of it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. I'm so glad we had this conversation too.
And we will link to that Instagram, all of Amy's facts. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Erin, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.